In the summer of 1954, a psychologist named Muzafer Sherif loaded 22 boys onto 2 separate buses and drove them to a summer camp in the Robbers Cave State Park in Oklahoma. The boys were 11 years old. They were healthy, well-adjusted, and had been carefully selected. No history of behavioral problems. No troubled home lives. Average kids from average families. Sherif had screened out every variable he could think of that might contaminate the results. The boys on each bus didn't know the other bus existed. That was the point. Sherif was one of the most respected social psychologists of his era, and he was trying to answer a question that had been eating at him since World War II. How does hatred between groups actually start? Not the kind that grows from centuries of history or competing religions or stolen land. The raw, original kind, the kind that exists before any of that. Could you take ordinary children with nothing between them and produce genuine hatred from nothing? And if you could, what would it take to make it stop? He was about to find out. The 2 groups arrived at separate ends of the camp. They hiked, swam, cooked over fires, and spent the first week building exactly what Sherif expected them to build. Identity. One group named themselves the Eagles. The other called themselves the Rattlers. They designed their own flags. They developed their own inside jokes, their own norms, their own sense of what it meant to belong. Within days, each group had a clear social structure, a set of unspoken rules, and a quiet pride in being exactly who they were. Neither group knew the other existed yet. Then Sherif introduced them. Not with conflict, just with proximity. He arranged for both groups to discover each other naturally, the way you might notice a neighboring camp across a field. And the reaction was immediate. Before a single competitive event had been announced, before anyone had taken anything from anyone, the boys began drawing lines. The Eagles referred to the Rattlers as outsiders. The Rattlers started calling the Eagles a name that wasn't flattering. There was no history between these children. No previous wound, just the knowledge that another group existed, and the almost automatic conclusion that their group was the right one. Sherif hadn't even gotten to the hard part yet. He introduced a tournament. Baseball games, tug-of-war, tent pitching contests. The winning group would receive a trophy and pocket knives. The losing group would get nothing. Within 48 hours of competition beginning, the camp had transformed into something that made the researchers uncomfortable to watch. The Eagles burned the Rattlers' flag. The Rattlers broke into the Eagles' cabin and turned their belongings upside down, tearing comic books, stealing private property. Boys who had been kind and cooperative 1 week earlier were now plotting raids in the dark, filling socks with rocks, and talking about the other group the way people talk about enemies. Sherif stood above it all and wrote everything down. What he was watching was not the result of bad parenting or troubled childhoods or anything a counselor could have predicted from the files. It was the result of 2 things: a group identity and a competition for something that only one side could win. That was all it took. 22 normal boys, 2 weeks, and a trophy. The rest assembled itself. Here is the part that most people skip over. Sherif wasn't finished. Creating the conflict was only half the experiment. The second half was the question he actually cared about. Could it be undone? He tried the obvious things first. He brought the groups together for meals, for movies, for non-competitive contact. He assumed that simply being in the same space would soften the edges. It didn't. It made things worse. Every shared meal became a food fight. Every movie screening became a shoving match. Proximity without purpose didn't reduce hatred. It gave it more opportunities to express itself. So Sherif changed the variable. He introduced what he called superordinate goals. Problems that neither group could solve alone. The camp's water supply mysteriously failed. Both groups had to work together to find the break in the pipe running down from the reservoir, or nobody would have water. They found it, working side by side. Then a truck carrying food for both groups got stuck in a ditch on the way back from a supply run. Both groups grabbed the same rope they had used in the tug-of-war against each other, and they pulled the truck free together. One shared problem didn't fix everything. Neither did two, but by the third and fourth time the boys had to meet each other, something was shifting. The language changed first, then the seating at meals. Then, quietly, the friendships. On the last day of camp, the Rattlers spent their own prize money they had won in an earlier contest, to buy malts for the entire camp, Eagles and Rattlers both. The boy who suggested it had been one of the angriest voices during the raids 2 weeks earlier. Sherif published his findings, and the field of social psychology reorganized itself around them. His conclusions were stark and have never really been overturned. Group identity forms faster than anyone is comfortable admitting. Conflict between groups does not require history, grievance, or difference. It requires only that resources feel limited and that winning means someone else loses. And contact alone, the simple fact of being near each other, does not reduce that conflict. It has to be contact organized around a goal that neither side can reach without the other. But here is what the experiment keeps quietly saying, long after the academic papers settled. The boys were not unusual. Sherif had made certain of that. He had screened them precisely, so he could not be told that. The results were the product of some particular kind of child. They were ordinary, which means the ease with which they formed contempt, the speed at which they turned comfort into cruelty, the way identity calcified into us and then immediately into us versus them, none of that was a flaw in those specific children. It was a feature. It was the social machinery working exactly the way it was built to work. The same machinery that built every coalition, every tribe, every nation that has ever existed. The machinery is not good or bad, it is just fast. And it does not ask whether the groups it is dividing deserve to be divided. The Eagles and the Rattlers went home at the end of summer. Most of them probably forgot about it within a few years, the way children forget things. But Sherif did not forget. He spent the rest of his career trying to understand the second half of the experiment, the part about the rope and the truck and the water pipe. Because if the machinery that creates division is automatic, the machinery that repairs it is not. It requires design. It requires someone deciding in advance that the problem ahead of us is bigger than the line between us. That decision does not make itself, it never has.